Great, thank you. Well, I know that we, in setting up LeadCo, Nortec Energy Enterprise sponsored a study of the economic impacts or implications of a successful offshore wind industry, and the results of that study indicated that if we're on a trajectory where we install 1,000 megawatts by 2020 towards, say, 5,000 megawatts by 2030, we could be talking about 8,000 jobs or thereabouts in the state of Ohio associated with that. So I hope that that's an achievement that we can all look back and point to. If you had to speak in front of an audience such as this one and say, these are the things that I worry about, what would you say? Lori?
I worry about everything. We have there's so many tracks on this, but I think I think I go back to understanding history, and you know, I'm a big student of history, and I realize, you know, over time people don't change a whole lot, and you know, a lot of these things that we're going through now have been gone through before, and I just I look at things like other forms of power, nuclear, which I'm very familiar with, and you know what the hurdles were in the 50s, and I think what I'm afraid of is that people won't be cognizant of the fact that we've been through this before, and there's a time element associated with it. As my old professor used to say, there's a time constant, and you have to let it play out to see if you're going to be successful.
Rich?
I share in Lori's comments there. I think there is a challenge ahead to get the cost down to make this sustainable. It is doable, but it's gonna take focus and it's gonna take time. So, you know, it's almost, there has to be some belief that you're gonna get there in order to get it started. And I just hope that we have the time to get there.
Mark, what concerns you?
I think the thing I worry about most is that the state policy position changes either legislatively or through the executive, so that it's not as supportive of this project. I think especially phase one, if it does not have the strong support that it has today, it won't be impossible, but the hurdles will be much higher.
Great, thank you. I believe, are we going to general audience Q&A at this point, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a special program featuring Mark R. Shanahan, Executive Director of the Ohio Air Quality Development Authority, Richard Reno, Offshore Product Manager for General Electric, Dr. Lori Wagner, President of the Lake Erie Energy Development Corporation, and moderated by Richard Stube, Founding Principal for Nortec Energy and Enterprise, Fellow for Advancement for the Cleveland Foundation. Now we would like to return to our speakers for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today, our Program Director, Carrie Miller. There's Carrie. And Development Assistant Lucille Barbati. There. First question, please. Sorry.
The question from Mark Shanahan. You talked about incentives, and I wonder how the state might incent the PUCO and in turn the power distribution companies to have smart grids so that those who want to can buy energy made from wind or other clean power, and also at the same time maybe buy energy cheaper at night than during the day.
Well, I'm not sure everybody would agree with the use of the verb incent on this, but the Public Utilities Commission actually ordered all 4 of Ohio utilities to apply for federal dollars to support the deployment of smart grid equipment in Ohio. They were successful in that, and they were granted 50% cost recovery out of the rate base to match that. So it doubled the dollars available. That's being done across the state today at different stages with the utilities, and that will begin to provide the opportunity for time-of-day pricing. Understand that that is a scary notion for a lot of people, worrying about how much electricity costs at a given time, but it has enormous opportunities for consumers to take control of the cost of their electricity. The push to let people get more access to renewable energy is in fact in the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard. By the year 2025, 12.5% at least of all electricity sold in Ohio has to come from renewable energy sources. At least half of that electricity has to be generated in the state of Ohio.
We see a lot of television ads these days from candidates for Senate and governor talking about the outsourcing of jobs to other countries. And one of my questions is, what is going on in your wind program as far as focusing on Ohio or United States employment in producing the pieces and parts?
I'd like to, I guess, point that first to Lori, and also like Mark to weigh in on that.
Yeah, well, you know, on offshore wind, you look at it as essentially in two segments. One is above the water, which is the turbine and where it's manufactured, and then what we call below the water, which is all of the infrastructure and construction, engineering, geotech, transportation, logistics, all the other components. And for the most part, all of the below the water components and jobs need to be sourced locally within the region. You may bring in somebody with experience in the Gulf or in the UK, and they're a team leader, but by and large, the majority of the jobs for the construction will be sourced locally. When it comes to the manufacturing, I'm going to steal a phrase out of Rich, but because these machines, I went to see the machines last week, and when you look on paper and you think these are big, you don't realize how big they are until you're next to them. And I've seen a lot of turbines, but they beg to be made near where they're put up. And so essentially the transport costs become so high that you need to make the blades, the towers, the major components as close to where you're going to put them up. So in summary, basically, one of the key missions of LEEDCO is to focus on bringing as many jobs as we can to the region. And as I said at the end of that comment about what defines success, a big part of that success is bringing jobs to the region.
Mark, do you want to add anything to?
The only thing I would add is clearly the state involvement with incentives is tied to jobs. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a variety of levels of jobs and values for this deployment. And the more jobs that get created here, the more we can provide incentives to help the project move forward. I think for the Cleveland area, there's something else there that's critically important. You know, we're sitting here at Euclid and 9th, 20 or so blocks up Euclid at the beginning of the 20th century is where the first turbine that generated electricity was built. And that's a Cleveland technology, and we need to bring that back home.
In a way, this is a follow-up, because my question was also about the jobs, since that's so much a part of how you build the coalition. The pathways, the specific jobs that will be created, we know that for our residents, whether in Northeast Ohio, Lorraine, Ashtabula, knowing the pathways is going to be key, whether that's for 6 months or 3 years, so that we can get our folks who aren't in that pipeline right now, get more of them into that pipeline. Is that part of the equation right now? Who's working on that? How do we tap into that?
Lori, I think that's essentially a question of kind of the pace of the ramp and the build out of the industry. You want to respond to that briefly?
Yeah, well, that's certainly in our thinking. We're looking at the trade schools, the universities, the two-year schools, where the workforce is going to be developed, and trying to understand what is available now